Hi, this is John Ainsworth, and you're listening to the Sirens of Audio.
Gary's a very hard person to get facts out of. He just tends to waffle a bit. He loves to go off on a tangent, and you forget what on earth you were talking about in the first place.
G'day audiophiles, welcome to the Sirens of Audio, the podcast that explores the universe of Doctor Who and the audio medium. I'm your host Dwayne, and Philip will be joining us very shortly, where we'll be sharing the third and final part of our chat with Big Finish legend Gary Russell. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, where videos, that's it, live action videos of Philip and myself and our guests are posted to enhance the podcast. Our social channels are all accessible from our website, sirensofaudio.com. One of the most momentous times for Doctor Who fans when it came to Big Finish was the continuation of the 8th Doctor stories with a brand new companion in Charlie Pollard and a full series of current Doctor stories. Storm Warning was released in January 2001, just a little over 20 years ago. But in actuality, the first 8th Doctor story recorded was the third released, The Stones of Venice, with a very familiar guest star to Doctor Who fans, Michael Sheard. Before Philip and I get back into our chat with Gary, here's a trailer for the momentous first recording sessions with Paul McGann, which became The Stones of Venice.
Look at the state of this place. It's all seen better days. I'd be ashamed to have carpets like this. No wonder it's deserted.
You don't think that she could save us?
I do not think anything could save us, Your Grace.
Just as well. Salvation is, I think, such a dull and worthy concept.
The distant sound of ceremonials. I wonder if they're into sacrifice as well. They usually are at that time.
Together at last. I am here, my lord.
Where have they gone? My guests, my people, they have fled.
I can't blame them, really, Your Grace.
No matter. I must find the portrait.
I am here, my lord. I am here, my lord.
How often you've called us amphibians, toads, fish people, yet none of you suspected the truth.
Which is?
And as for you lot, I don't carry weapons. I don't need them. And I must say, I think you treat your visitors here in a very shabby manner indeed. I'm glad I've managed to...
Doctor, get in! I am to be joined with the Duke at dawn.
No!
Stand back, you fool! You'll be killed too!
Down him! I tried to tell them, I tried. Look, the hands of the clock are meeting.
That's it then. It's dawn.
And the clock chimes out for the death of Venice.
So Paul McGann,
Yes, sorry. Yes, Paul McGann. So, you see, this brings us full circle because we thought, right, well, we'll go for Paul. He'll probably say no, but we've got to try. So we tried. So we went to his agent, Bugger Me, who is his agent. And so Fielding says, no, he's not going to do it, 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 not going to do it. I just kept saying, Janet, please just ask him. And Janet, I think, was just leaving the agency at this point anyway. And she went, all right, I've got nothing to lose. I'll just ask him, but he'll say no. And he'll say no. And then she came back to him and said, he said yes. But by the time we actually came to do it, Janet had moved on. She wasn't with the agency anymore. She'd set up Women in Television. So it was actually handled then by somebody else at the agency. But Janet was the one that initially brokered the deal with Paul. And Paul was incredibly enthusiastic, and I was terrified. We were all terrified, to be honest with you. And we went up to Bristol. We'd never met Paul. I think Jason had done all the negotiation, but it had been through his agent. No one had ever exchanged a word of anything. I'd sent in the scripts. I think even those were sent by his agent rather than his home address. But there were only 3 scripts at that point we'd sent him. We didn't have Minuet in Hell. And we went up to Bristol, and we were there, and oh no, that was the second one. He didn't turn up. No, he was there. That's right. He turned up, and he was full of just joy, pure joy to be doing Doctor Who again. Got on like a house on fire with India, thank God. And so we did Sirens of Venice, then we did Sword of Orion, and then we did Storm Warning, and then I said, here's a load of random pages for the one we're doing tomorrow with Nick Courtney. And he went, Nick Courtney's going, oh, the Brigadier, I get to work with the Brigadier. Oh my God, that's so exciting. And I thought, oh, I like you even more now. But, it was a handful of random pages because we didn't have a full script for Minuet in Hell at that point. And we wrapped that up, and we got to the end of the Friday, and we were leaving the studio, and there was only me and Paul left in the studio. And I think we'd said to him, Paul's very anti having photographs. He wasn't very keen to have photographs. And we'd done one photo call with him and Michelle and India from Sword of Orion. And then I've gone up onto the local park and taken some, well, I hadn't taken them, I think Harry Gillett took them, some photographs of India and Paul and Nick Courtney. But I did say to him, it'd be really nice at the end of today, would you be prepared to have one quick photograph with me, Nick, and Jack Rayner? Just, it's the only time I had a photograph taken, I think, of me in the whole time I was at Big Finish. And he said, yeah, of course I will, mate. Yeah, it's cool. And Nick and Jack were waiting outside. And I just said to Paul as we were leaving the studio, I said, so it's all right? And he went, yeah, when are we doing the next lot then? And I thought, oh, we've done it. We've got him. We've got him for good. We've got you. So I went outside and we did this photograph, and then Paul said his goodbyes and went off. And I just turned around to Jack and Nick and said, I've got to start work on McGann season 2 straight away. He wants to do more. I was like, yes, we've succeeded. We've got Paul McGann on board for good. That was a very happy day. It was a very happy week. It was good fun. Good fun that was. Paul was brilliant. But yes, I was going to say there was a point where he didn't turn up, but actually that's the start of the second season where we all trooped up to Bristol and we're all sitting in the studio going, where's Paul? And phoned his agent and said, where's Paul? And she went, oh my God, I've double booked him. He's doing another job. He's in London. I was like, oh, we're all in Bristol with an entire crew cast sitting here waiting for him. So we got on and did a few things, and bugger me, by about, I think, 12:30 that morning in the studio, exhausted. He literally finished the job he was doing in London, jumped on a train and came straight to the studio, full of apologies. And it was like, it's not your fault. Your agent double booked you. But yeah, he was great. I love working with Paul. I love Paul dearly. He's a really nice man. It takes a while, I think, to get into the Paul circle around him. He's lots of barriers with Paul. It's not like Colin and Peter and Sylvester. Although I suppose to some extent, again, I say I've known them for years, and that was through conventions and just being friends with them. And so Paul was a completely new commodity. We were a new commodity to him. But once you got through that barrier and became on good terms with Paul, friends for life. And every time we see each other now, it's always lovely. Very creative man, very creative. Lots of, not a huge amount of input into the scripts, but very good at saying one line that made you think, all right, that's the kind of story you want to do. Is it? Okay, we'll go away and commission one like that then.
So with Charlie and India Fisher, was that, once again, was it the actress because you'd seen her in Winter for the Adept and you thought, I want this actress? Or
yes, I suspect it was. I think Jason and I, when we were creating Charlie, probably had India very much in mind. We hadn't spoken to her, but we had India in mind. Originally, she was a different character, she had a different name. She called Kerry, I think, at one point, something like that. And Jason wanted her to be Victorian, and I wanted her to be 1950s. I wanted that kind of gung-ho post-war Agatha Christie kind of thing. And we compromised. We compromised originally on the 30s, and then when Alan came on board, and by this time we'd got the name Charlie. I desperately wanted to call her Charlie because I thought, again, that immediately says to you the kind of character someone is if they got taken the boy's name. Boom, that tells you the kind of spunky, gung-ho, tomboyish kind of character you're going to have. And Alan immediately said, well, I'd like to go further back now. I'd like to do the R101. And I went, cool, brilliant. And immediately he did this, and the web of time is damaged by her being saved. And that gave me the impetus for the next 3-4 years of Paul McGann stories, this whole web of time thing. And Alan came up with the surname Pollard. I think it was I was Charlie, and he came up with Charlotte Elizabeth Pollard or Elspeth Pollard. So he kind of christened her, and he developed the character very much along the lines that she is and was, and that's down to Alan, really. So yes, I can never claim to have created Charlie. Really, Charlie is much more of a group effort between me, Jason, and Alan, particularly, and to some extent India as well. Whereas Evelyn and Hex are 100% my creations.
Charlie very much is the new series companion before we had a new series, in terms of her emotionally side, her love of the Doctor. There's so much stuff in her that would actually be reproduced in Rose.
It's interesting, sir. That's never occurred to me, because I would always say that Hex is the closest to a new series companion. To me, Charlie is much more a product, ironically, of the things I don't like, which is the BBC New Advent, the BBC Eighth Doctor books. I consciously didn't want her to be like Sam, and so she sort of took elements of the kind of character depth they were doing in those books, but was as far removed from Sam Jones as you could possibly be. But yeah, you're right. I suppose there is an element of, I think the love thing is, I mean, the love thing gave us Neverland and Zagreus, and particularly Scherzo. And then after that, it kind of dissipates deliberately after that, because there's nowhere to go with it after that. So I didn't want to get into sort of the Doctor in love with his companion, as you say, Rose, or the companion in love with the Doctor, Freema. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to make it that sort of launch pad for a powerful new wave of stories for the Divergent arc, but not make it a feature of it once we'd done it. It then just became an unsaid bond between them, and you never needed to say it again. Very, I'm quite proud of the Divergence universe arc. I know lots of people didn't like it. Nobody could ever tell me why they didn't like it. They just went, oh, they don't like that. Why not? Well, it's different. Well, there you go. But it was a worthwhile experiment. But yeah, it came to an abrupt end when the new series was announced. And Jason said, look, we may have problems going ahead. We may lose the license. Who knows what's going to happen? I would like to be in a position where it's harder for them to do that. So let's get him out of the Divergent universe and back into our universe. So the Divergent universe arc ended a good 2 years earlier than it was supposed to. And some of those stories got repurposed, and some of them got chucked completely, and new stories took their place back in our universe.
We're all going to be killed shortly unless you switch over to sectional air supply.
No, I was going to ask about the Divergent universe, because it was at that time that the new series was, and you came back saying that Jason Hay-Gallery seemed very calm about what may or may not happen. But how did you personally feel about the new series coming back?
Shitting bricks, absolutely terrified. I was told on my 40th birthday, or around my 40th birthday party, anyway. Everyone was going, oh, it's coming back, it's coming back, it's coming back, it's coming back. And I was like, oh, no, don't do that. The last thing I want the show to do is come back, because it would be the end for Big Finish. Who in their right mind is going to care about Big Finish when you've got a nice, shiny new TV series on telly? So I was panicking, thinking, yeah, if the show comes back, we are dead in the water. No one is going to want anything to do with Big Finish. And then about a week later, I got a phone call from Russell going, just thought I should ring you. Oh, lovely to talk to you. By the way, Doctor Who's coming back. You'll be fine. Don't worry. And I said, thank you very much. I'm still convinced that, we were finished. And it is quite telling that I can't remember when exactly the new series was announced. I think it would have been October, September, October 93. It was announced that they were making it. Our subs were always January and June. That was the renewal thing. And the subs that January went down by 2/3. Just 2/3 of the audience just went, oh, we don't need Big Finish anymore. And that damaged us a lot. Suddenly we didn't have any money for 2004. And of course, I'd committed all these things to scripts and actors, and half of them would be made, and Jason suddenly looking at a balance sheet going, shit, we have no money. And then June that year, or July that year, of the next wave of subscriptions, it just went back up normal. There's just this 6-month blip where I think people went in that January, I don't need to subscribe, there'll be new Doctor Who soon. And then by June, they were going, mind you, that's still about 2 years away. All right, we'll resubscribe to Big Finish again. But that was quite worrying. That was quite damaging, that first 6 months of 2004 financially for us. I didn't care. I just spent Jason's money anyway. But yeah, it was quite worrying, and I spent a lot of time. And the only real effect the whole thing had on us didn't really kick in until the series was actually on air. We had spent our entire time originally with Steve and then with Jack Rayner. Everything, they were our BBC contacts. They were our BBC approvals. So Steve did it for many years, and then Jack took over, and she was which is, in both cases, very useful for us because they were writing for me as well. But then suddenly one day, Jack says, right, we have a problem in that now this person, I had 7 people at the BBC, 6 of whom who didn't even know what Big Finish was. I'm fairly confident 6 of those people didn't know what Doctor Who was either. All suddenly having to have approval on stuff. And I remember saying to Russell, are you doing, is there any chance you can do these approvals? And he went, no, I'm sorry, I just don't have the time. And he put Helen Rayner onto it. And so Helen became our person in the actual production office as the script editor of the show. But the rest of these people were just nameless people at BBC Worldwide who were all in complete panic about Doctor Who coming back. And suddenly everyone wanted to take everything terribly, terribly seriously. But of course, what I didn't know until many years later when working with Russell was there was a point where we were going to lose the license, just have it taken away from us. And he stopped it. And he said, no, Big Finish and Doctor Who magazine carry on exactly as they are. We do not interfere with them. Boom. And he laid down that rule and saved both us and DWM. But BBC Worldwide would have cancelled both our licenses at a moment's notice the moment the show was announced as coming back. So bless him, Russell saved Big Finish and Doctor Who magazine. But yes, suddenly I had all these people to try and keep happy and appease to. And I will say that the only things that I ever had was I had one play that would have featured Queen Victoria. And Russell himself emailed me. He'd obviously been asked about this by Helen. And Russell emailed me and said, could you not do Queen Victoria? I'm going to be doing her in Doctor Who. As it is, he didn't do it until the 2nd year. But so that Queen Victoria then became the Duke of Wellington. And the only other thing we had a problem with was Live 34, in which we used the word terrorist quite a lot. And a note came back from the BBC saying, could you avoid the word terrorist? Bear in mind, this is only 2 years, 3 years since 9/11. But the BBC was very neurotic about the word terrorist being associated with Doctor Who, particularly in a positive way, i.e. the Doctor was teaming up with terrorists. And, I'd turn around and say to them, well, don't forget Day of the Daleks, blah, 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 and then realised that I was just speaking words to people who did not know what Day of the Daleks was, who John Pertwee was, or anything like that. So, I had to go through Live 34 and take the word terrorist out, which, as you know, with Live 34 is quite a difficult word to take out, actually. But those are the only 2 times we ever had any interference at all from the BBC, and they were both, in the case of Queen Victoria, very easy to deal with, and the case of the terrorism thing, something to look out for and not repeat. I remember panicking with Night Thoughts and thinking, I'm never going to get this play past the BBC now. I think when Ed had first admitted it, it was before the BBC group of approvers. And I just thought, I'm never going to get anything as violent and vicious and people having their eyes torn out by a toy rabbit. That's never going to get past the BBC. Sailed through, absolutely sailed through. Nobody batted an eyelid at that one. So, ooh, that's lucky. I do think there are things looking back at my run of Big Finish that you wouldn't get away with now, probably including that one. But I think I was just lucky towards the end that, if you're nice and charming and accommodating with people once, they kind of let the next 3 or 4 go. So as long as you just keep people happy and you be professional about everything and you don't argue. The worst thing you can ever do when you're a licensee is when the licensor says, please do this or don't do this. You don't turn around and argue and say, no, I'm sorry. You might occasionally go, look, we've actually done the next 3 of these. Can we change it after that? And they'll go, yes. Case in point, when we did the Paul McGann, first run of Paul McGann's, we put a bronze logo on it. And they said, no, could you change that to the blue, standard blue? And I said, we've actually printed. I promise we'll never do it again. But those first 4 McGanns, I'm afraid, it'll cost us a fortune to reprint covers at this stage with blue logos. And they went, all right, just don't ever do it again. So if you promise you never do it again, they're very easy people to deal with, the BBC. You only have a problem. Licensees only have a problem, I think, with BBC if they turn around and argue, because nothing gets the backup of somebody who's in charge of something. If you turn around and say, we need you to do this, and you go, no, So I never said no. I would say, please, can we do that in 3 months' time? Or 9 times at the time say yes, because they're in charge. It's their property, not ours. We're just sort of the latest funnel for their activity.
Gary, you went through a period which was probably, I think, the most creative in some ways Big Finish has been. You mentioned Live 34, The Pirates. You've got Boom, what was called?
Bang Bang a Boom.
Bang Bang a Boom. You've got Flip Flop. You were going out of your way to be unbelievably creative in that, I don't know, sort of year 3, 4, 5. Is that just because writers were trying to find different ways of telling stories? Were you trying to encourage that?
Yes. Yes to both of those. It's confidence, to be honest with you. It's confidence in knowing that we can do this once in a blue moon and get away with it. To cite the stories, I mean, Boom Boom a Bang, I think it is, isn't it? Because Bang a Bang a Boom is the real song. I think it's Boom Boom. Anyway, whatever it is. Not one of my favourites. Not because it's Clayton and Gareth did a bad script. They do a brilliant script. But I am the world's least fan of the Eurovision Song Contest. So suddenly having it pitched to me as a let's do outer space Eurovision Song Contest, my brain went, oh, God, no. So I knew right from day one, I remember saying to Clay and Gareth, I was like, I can just tell you now, I won't be directing this one because there's no point. I have no feel for this at all. Pirates was just Jack saying, I think that Pirates probably came out, maybe I might be misremembering this, of Jack and Colin in the lunch area of a previous play singing the Pirates' Penzance, Modern Major General, something like that. And suddenly Jack's presenting me with this idea of doing, I'd always wanted to do Doctor Who and the Pirates. Doctor Who and the Pirates is a title that had been on my list from day one. I just wanted to do something with pirates. I didn't know what kind of pirates. I just wanted Doctor Who and the Pirates. Because it had been one of those, it had been an unpublished Doctor Who Discovers book. Doctor Who and the Pirate discovers pirates. So I'd said to Jay, I would want to do Doctor Who and the Pirates. And then one day she presented me with this outline for Doctor Who and the Pirates with songs. Well, I was like, no way am I doing a musical. That's a terrible idea. How on earth are we going to do that on our budget and our setup? And somehow, because it's Jack, she talked me into it over a process of about 20 minutes and then left with sort of, so I'll leave you to talk to Jason about that then. I was like, yeah. How did I get talked? What? No, how is this going to happen? So I phoned Jason up and said, look, I've got a play coming up. It's going to need 3 days, not 2 days in the studio. And Jason said, no. Why? I said, it's a musical. And he went, oh, really? With Colin? Oh, interesting. All right, you can have 3 days. So I then thought, I can't direct this because I knew nothing about music. I'm not musical and I can't sing. So I went to Nick and Barney and said to them, I've got this coming up. Jack's done this. And Nick said, yep, I'd love to do that. And so, yeah, that was they got Bill Oddie. They got Tim in to do the music. The music was all done live in the studio. That's why we had the 3 days. I think the first 2 days were the standard recording of the play, and the third day was virtually all the music, with a couple of exceptions of people that weren't available on that third day. Bill Oddie was just amazing.
You know what always goes well with cake and a cuppa? A good story. And you know what makes a good story? Pirates.
We were serving under Ezekiel Bones, the most feared man ever to sail these seas. It was near the Ruby Islands.
This is awful. Pirates. We've already established that.
I say, what's going on? My hammock's all wet. Oh!
Don't you worry, Captain Swanson. No pirate will take the brave sea eagle.
You think so, do you?
You're no pirate.
I take that as a compliment.
You're not going to sing.
Cowards! You rotters! Better to die a loyal subject than succumb to the lawlessness of piracy.
I can feel it in my bones. That treasure is still there.
Treasure? Well, me name, you see. Me name's really James, see. Only they took to calling me Jem. Said he was glad he hadn't brought all the other gems home, because one was enough for him.
I'm sorry, Dr. Smythe, but this is just ridiculous.
Oh, all right. let's say he only had one wooden leg.
And what's more, I will have it.
Oh no, you are going to sing.
Well, yes, I am.
So that's how the Pirates happened, but I did say I wouldn't do another musical after that. And then Bang Bang a Boom, I think, has music in it as well.
Bang Bang a Boom was first because Gareth and complains about the fact that they wanted to have songs and you said no.
Oh,
and
right.
Then a few months later, the Pirates comes out. And
sorry, Gareth, you're just not as pretty as Jack Rayner. That's clearly what it is. And then The Wormery has songs as well. Again, that was no, I'm not doing songs. No, I'm not doing songs. I've now got a script that's got songs in it. I've now got an actor who's going to come live and play the piano and sing. Okay. Flip Flop, a case of, now where were we? We were at, was it the launch party for Nick Courtney's book? Oh, we were somewhere and Johnny Morris just came up to me and said, I've had this great idea. We do a 2-disc release that can be played in any order. He said, so it's like a Mobius strip. It ends and then it starts, and it ends and it starts, and it just does that. And I was immediately like, ooh, we could have a black disc and a white disc, so there's no disc 1 and disc 2. And we could put them in a J card. We could put 2 separate discs in a J card. So rather than a jewel box, you actually have 2 separate things. All of these things, that's how I think about these things. It's, oh, yeah, it's a great idea for a script. How can I market this? How can I make this work for people so that they don't have a definite listening order? And so that's how Flip Flop happened. And he came up with this brilliant script for it. So, yeah, then a couple of... It's the settling 3 discs. Why did we have the settling in a digibox? Can't remember. I haven't got my discs handy, but the settling was another one that there was lots of conversations about because it ends up in a digibox, the same as the Next Life and Zagreus. So yeah, things like that would always appeal to me. It was like with Project Lazarus, the boys wanted to do a sequel and they wanted to have Colin and Sylvester in it, and I was like, yeah, that's great, and also I can have 2 covers. Or we could do 2 covers and not tell anyone what covers they're going to get. Because I knew the arguments. Oh, Doctor Who fans. Oh, dear Big Finish. I want the Sylvester cover. I want the Colin. No, you get what you delivered. And some people get a Colin cover and some people get a Sylvester cover, and that was fun. And then we were doing lots of signings at 10th Planet Bookshop in East London. And I was talking to Derek, who ran the shop, and he was saying to him, or we were having a conversation about things we could do to entice people to buy from him and come to these signings, because he did a signing for every single release, bless him, which is a lot of outlay and money for him to pay for all the actors to come and do it all and everything. And I said, why don't we do some 10th Planet exclusive covers? So everyone that buys it everywhere else, Forbidden Planet or from Big Finish, gets one cover, but at 10th Planet, you have a unique 10th Planet cover. So we did that for Cadroia and we did that for Singularity. They had separate covers. I know we did, I think it's the Nowhere Place has, again, like Lazarus, has 2 different covers, which is just random. You get whichever one you're given from when we put those on sale. One was far more limited than the other as well. That really upset people. It's always fun to upset people, But yeah, I love doing special things like that. But it's all a sign of confidence. It was the first few years is finding your feet, finding out what does and doesn't work. You don't learn anything overnight. You learn through experience and listening to your audience and not upsetting them too much. And so, yeah, by the time end of 2003 and 2004 and 5 come along, we're on a bit of a roll of going, right, we can do this. We can do that. We wouldn't do that, but we might try this and see how this goes. Another one like that is Creatures of Beauty. When Nick suggested to me, he wanted to do a fragmented jigsaw play, that you only got what was going on at the last possible minute. And I thought that was ingenious, absolutely so clever. And there were 2 versions, I think, of that script where the actors had one because they recorded it in order as normal. And then me and Nick had the other, which is this is how it's actually going to end up on the discs. Clever, very clever. Nick's a genius for that sort of thing. I think overall, Big Finish for me, my 8 years at Big Finish, were working with enormously creative people. All I did was steer the ship. I didn't have to be enormously creative. I had no talent for anything like that. My only talent is talent management. Is just getting the right writers and people together. And my pleasure out of it was directing. That's what I loved, was going into the studio with the actors and actually putting it together. And I say occasionally going, oh, I'm too tired, or I don't want to direct this one. This is not my cup of tea. Let someone else who's got the right flavour and the right passion for this to go away and direct that.
Was it a hard decision to then leave Big Finish and move to BBC Wales, or it was just the right time? The money was too good?
I think, after 8 years, I probably needed to move on. I think other people at Big Finish were desperate for me to go. And then, it was just the total coincidence. I was doing this book for BBC Worldwide called Doctor Who, The Inside Story, and I was interviewing everybody up in Cardiff. I was travelling up here, and going home again in the day and then going back to Big Finish for a couple of days. I've got to go and interview such. I'll drive up to Cardiff for 2 hours, which is, 2.5 hour drive from where I was living anyway. So there's a lot of that going on. And I went up to Manchester at the end I'd interviewed everyone else for the book and basically written the book. And the last person I wanted to interview was Russell, because I said to him, look, I've told everybody, which Russell kind of told me in the first place he wanted, which is warts and all. And then he would be in a position to say, well, the reason I did this is, and oh, yes, that's what that person thinks. Well, they're wrong, because actually what happened was, so Russell had to be the last person I interviewed. And I was up in his place in Manchester and we were chatting away. Finished the interview with him. And, Russell's a massive Big Finish fan. He got them all on the wall and everything, and we were talking about them. And he just said, what do you want to do with your life? You're going to be at Big Finish forever? And I said, honestly, I think it's probably time I got out of there. I think there are people at Big Finish who quite like me to leave. So, I don't know what I want to do. I quite like writing. I've always wanted to be a script editor on Doctor Who. I wanted to be Terence Dicks, And he went, all right, okay, fine. Yeah, I can see that. Anyway, boom, end of that, went home. And then I had to come up to BBC Cardiff for something. It wasn't to interview someone, but there was some reason I think I was coming to pick some photographs or something up for the book. And this guy I'd never heard of before emailed me and said, when you're next in Cardiff, can you pop in and see me? And his name was Matthew Boosh, and he was the head of drama development, I think. What have I done wrong? And he just said, Russell said you wanted to, think about careers and things. I just thought I'd see what you wanted to do. And so I was talking to him about Big Finish, which he didn't really know what Big Finish was. And I was just blathering away, really. And then he said, well, Russell and Julie want you to be a script editor on Doctor Who. Can you start next week? I was like, Scotty, was this a job interview? And you went, yeah, I think it probably was. And I said, yes. And then I had to go home and phone Jason up and say, I'm leaving Big Finish. When? Next week. And he said, has Russell offered you a job? And I went, yeah, I'm really sorry, he has. And so actually what we arranged was I would do 3 days a week here and 2 days a week at Big Finish till the end of the year. So that got me through to Year of the Pig and polishing off I Davros as well. And so, suddenly we got to 90 releases, of which 89 of which are 100% me. And No Man's Land is the one that fell on the cusp of. So I commissioned No Man's Land and did the first couple of drafts with Martin. But then I was tied up here, so I couldn't finish that. Although it came out before Year of the Pig. That was actually finished off by John Ainsworth, and he directed it. And I had commissioned a handful of scripts. I was halfway through working on Nocturne when I left. And again, they took that over. And there were some other scripts I'd commissioned and they used, and there were other scripts I'd commissioned, which they then junked. Within sort of 5 minutes of me walking out the door, Nick had taken it all off in a completely new and different direction. And it was, as it should be, as if I'd never existed. It was like Nick's show after that, which I think is, the way it should be done. And I will say here and now quite happily that from play 91 onwards, which I think is probably Nocturne, I have never listened to a single bit of Big Finish's Doctor Who output, very deliberately, because I know what Doctor Who fandom is like. And the first thing that happened to me 2 or 3 years after I'd left Big Finish was people would say to me at conventions, how do you think your era of Big Finish and Nick's, how different do you think they are? And I just go, I've never listened to Nick's stuff, so I can't answer that question, because I knew that's what was going to happen. People would try and go pit, your 8 years versus at that point Nick's 3 or 4 years or whatever. And I just thought, fuck that, no, I'm not doing that. So I've never listened to anything
very Aaron Sorkin, because he did his first 4 years of West Wing, has never watched an episode ever after that.
It's a very sensible thing to do, because it just means people can't put you in an awkward position and say, what do you think of such and such? Because you never want to say, I think that's crap or I think that's great. You just go, nothing to do with me. Every creative decision from Nocturne onwards has nothing to do with me. Therefore, I can't comment on it. And I don't want to be drawn into a sort of them and us kind of thing.
Now, you see that scanner? That is what I call a scanner up there.
Now, you did come back there to do some Gallifrey and to do some Benny. So
yep,
your connection there stayed there?
Well, that was quite bizarre. I think, I don't know why, which we did Gallifrey first, didn't we? I don't know why there was a sudden decision to want more Gallifrey. I think it was probably a David Richardson decision. And I think Jason probably said, well, it is Gary's baby. You can't really do it without him. So I think there was probably a lot of, do we want to do that? Do we want to go down that road? And then David just emailed me out of the blue one day and said, look, we're thinking of doing another 4 episodes of Gallifrey. Would you be interested? And I did sit down and think, I ended it, you know. We got to the Time War and all of this sort of thing. And I thought, well, maybe it wasn't the Time War, or maybe it's something else. And I thought, the only way to do it is to do a series of alternative Gallifreys. I quite like that. What if? Boom. And I was on board. And then that just turned into 3 more years of Gallifrey, or 3 more box sets of Gallifrey. And again, got to the end of actually setting up the Time War. And we all went, yeah, that's it. That's the end of Gallifrey. We've reached the point where we can go no further with Gallifrey. And then I went to live in Australia, and the moment that happened, they carried on with a load more Gallifreys. Like, okay, fine, that's their prerogative, which I've never listened to. But yeah, it was nice to come back to Gallifrey. I think we did 3 more very good years of it. I'm very proud of those. There's nothing wrong with any of those. And at the same time, as Scott and I were doing Gallifrey, they asked us if we would do Benny. And I was very keen to do that. I was very happy to do that. I love working with Lisa. But again, I wanted to go in a different direction. I wanted to bring in a much more, I think because of the Gallifrey thing as well, had taught me, and also working on Doctor Who taught me that ensemble works very well. And if Ben, at this point, Benny's got a good ensemble. And so, Peter's there and Brax is there. And I wanted to create a couple of new companions for her. Well, actually, I wanted one. Jack was a complete accident. But we created Ruth. And I had to wrap up John Ainsworth's stuff. John had left it on a sort of intending to carry on, and then decided he didn't want to. So I was kind of lumbered with this, how do I get out of that? So we wrapped that up very quickly and then went off with our own stuff. And then a play came in with this character of Spring-Heeled Jack. And suddenly he was like, Scott and I looked at each other with this sort of light bulb moment and went, like him. That would be really good with Benny. It's a very good, clever character. And we had David Ames as well, and that's always good. So we had a good cast, and we did, 3 or 4 box sets of that. And I've got to be honest, I found working, if I could have just gone, I'm working for Big Finish, and it was the same setup as I'd been when I was there, I'd have been a lot more chilled. But there's a lot more, I don't want to say rules and regulations, that's not what there's a lot more paperwork, a lot more, it's much more professionally run, I think, under David Richardson than it ever was under me. But that meant, therefore, there were lots of things. You had lots of T's that needed crossing and I's that needed dotting, and I got very, very bored and fed up with all of that. I said, can we just be creative? Oh, no, you can't do this and you can't do that. And if you have somebody come in for one line, you've still got to contract them, and they've got a bit of a... So it became a bit more hassle than it was worth financially, because, of course, it was in London, and Scott and I were in Cardiff, so we're having to drive to pay to get down to London all the time to record these things, and realizing quite quickly that, everything is a job. And we were giving up an awful lot of time in terms of commissioning and script editing, and then going into studio and actually making these things. And we were losing money. We were actually losing money doing the Benny stuff because of what it cost us just to go to London and stay over and things like that. It's just like, the fee for directing and his script editing, boom, that's gone in getting there and staying the night. And it was just hard, and it wasn't worth it. I personally, I don't know about Scott, who carried on working for Big Finish, so obviously not. But for me, I just found this sort of very starchy, you cannot break the rules, you cannot do this, you cannot. The list of what I could not do was longer than the list of what I could do, and I thought, this is not for me. So I stopped doing the Bennies. Again, Scott carried on like he had with Gallifrey. He carried on doing them. But I just thought, you know what? It was nice to come back, nice to play in the sandbox, particularly with Gallifrey. I was asked by Mark and Cav to direct a lot of the Iris Wildtime stuff. That was lovely because all I had to do was turn up on the day and direct it. That was brilliant. But I didn't want to produce anymore. It was just more trouble than it was worth, and my heart really wasn't in it enough. And once Gallifrey was gone, it was like, yeah, it's very easy to say goodbye. And then Australia happened. If Australia hadn't happened, I'd have done Torchwood. That was the original thing, was I was going to do the Torchwood releases. But then I went to Australia, so that became impossible. So James took on that. And I've not worked for Big Finish since, other than writing one short story for Xana for a Blake 7 collection, which was nice, actually. That was good fun, doing something for Blake.
So what's still on your dream list to do? You've created so many stories. You've interacted with so many amazing people. You seem to have great relationships. I know, speaking to you at conventions, you are always there for people to chat with. Is there anything left that you want to do?
Chris Chibnall's job. Seriously, I would love to make Doctor Who on telly. I wouldn't write it. I wouldn't do the showrunner thing of writing episodes at all. I would say, let's say 10 episodes a year. I would have a room with 10 writers in and say, this is what we're going to do. We'd throw ideas around, go off and write their scripts, and I would make the show. But, and tweak stuff if it needed to be. But I wouldn't be interested in being I want to be a showrunner without being the lead writer. And I think that is perfectly possible to do. And I think it's a much better use of money. Budget is to have other people. I'm a great believer that the more input you have from other people, creatively, from a writing point of view, the more different voices you have, the better your product is. And then as a showrunner, you can hone them and go, right, now I've got my 10 scripts. Now we can mesh them together and do all that in the office. But the actual physical writing of stories and dialogue is best handled by good telly writers. And that's what I would do. I would say, here's my shape for the series. Here's what I want. Off you go and do it, which is exactly what I do in Big Finish. You will notice looking at Big Finish that with the exception of one episode of Gallifrey, I never commissioned myself to write a script. I co-wrote with Alan 3 times, but really my contribution is that and Alan's is that. But, I didn't commission because I don't believe when you're in charge of a project like that, like Big Finish, you have any right to commission yourself. You're taking money out of other people's pockets. No, you've got hard enough jobs as it is without then forcing yourself to write. And the one Gallifrey I wrote was a nightmare for me because another script had fallen through and I knew I only had a sort of pocket time when I had Mary available. I think it's the first episode of season 3 of Gallifrey, maybe the first episode of season 2, I can't remember. But I suddenly had to write it in a weekend, and that's not me at all. I don't write that fast. But I never commissioned myself to do a main range and never would, because that's not my job. And that would be the same if I was in charge of a telly show like that. You just don't. You get other people to do it. That's what they're there for. And then you just tweak and push and prod and make it all work.
So how likely is the BBC to go? Because they've done that showrunner approach 3 times now. I think you worked Sarah Jane in Adventures, and that to me seemed like it was more that approach in terms of there wasn't a showrunner as such, but there was a script editor.
Well, there was. No, there was. Phil Ford was really the showrunner on Sarah Jane, and Chris was the showrunner on Torchwood, and Russell was there overseeing everything. But, Phil had input into everyone's scripts. If anything needed rewriting, Phil rewrote it. He was effectively the showrunner on Sarah Jane with Russell. Does the showrunner thing work? Yes, it does work. And I think a show like Doctor Who probably benefits from having that. I don't know. It's just, you ask what I would want to do. And if I was in charge of it, I wouldn't be doing the writing side of it. I just want creative control over everything because I'm a complete control freak and I'm mad and power mad and want to rule the world. But in practical terms, what would I like to do with Doctor Who? I would like to write a Jodie novel. That would appeal to me enormously. That's about it, really. I mean, it's quite weird that over the years, I've written books, factual and fiction and non-fiction. I've written comic strips. I've edited DWM. I've written computer games. I've worked on all 3 shows on telly. I've run Big Finish. I don't think there's a single aspect of Doctor Who that I haven't done at some point. other than write the TV show. But, you know, in all other aspects, I've been involved. And that's quite a lot to have done, and quite a lot that I think it's time to let other people step in. And you know, there's a whole new generation of creators. I'm a crumbly old man speeding towards being 60, and I remember being 25, 30 when I first started getting involved in Doctor Who, and looking at crumbly old people approaching 60 and thinking, go away, you know, you're too old to work on Doctor Who. And now I'm one of those people. And I do think, you know, the great thing that the new show has created since 2005, and I think particularly in the last 6 or 7 years, has been a huge influx of sort of 20-somethings fans, creative Doctor Who fans, and it's their turn to be the creatives running Doctor Who fandom now. And us old people will need to gracefully slink into the shadows and come out occasionally and wave a claw and go, oh, our glory days were really good, weren't they? But that's all we should be doing. And, you know, it's up to the new breed now, I think, to take charge of their Doctor Who, because it is their Doctor Who. It's Doctor Who's for the kids, and it's not really for grumpy old people in their 60s.
There's certainly a lot of fans who'd be very jealous of all that you've been able to do, and I think, you know, with your ticking off your target novel now as well, you have touched every aspect of Doctor Who people could want to do. So congratulations on doing all that.
I feel very lucky, I think is the word, because there's no talent involved at all. It's luck.
Not true.
Being in the right place at the right time. And you know, one thing maybe has spiraled to something else completely by accident. I'm very lucky and very honoured to have had, you know, 30, 40 years now since I first got into fandom, to have professionally and made money and made a career, loose term, out of a hobby. You know, there's not many people that can say that. And I'm enormously indebted to Doctor Who and enormously indebted to my fellow fans. And I'll never stop being a fan. I'll never stop being one of us. But yeah, you do wake up sometimes and think, I'm just so lucky. You know, here am I sitting here doing cartoons with you know, old doctors, and thinking, I'm still doing this. I'm so lucky. I don't know quite what I've done to have this luck, but, you know, can't knock it. It's been fun.
Well, we are also very indebted to you because of Big Finish, because, you know, you and Jason, and, you know, it was you that went and spoke to those 3 ladies originally. We have had, well, goodness knows how many thousands of dollars you've cost me. But aside from the fact
that's the one that makes Jason happy, so that's good.
Aside from the fact that I don't live in a nice house I could have lived in because of what you've done for decades.
No, blame Jason for that. Thank you. Don't blame me for the lack of nice house. That's Jason's problem. You can blame him for that.
It's your fault because of great stories, amazing characters.
That's very kind of you.
Always entertaining, and so yeah, I think all of us who are listening are very appreciative of all that you've done. And certainly for your time today too, you've been very abundant.
I'm very, very honoured that you've asked me to talk about Big Finish, because I'm immensely proud of it, and I think, you know, it's an honour to have been involved in something as important as Big Finish turns out to be. I'm not sure we always knew how important it was back at the time, but looking at the heritage it's got now, and the sort of the way it's seeped into the media and seeped into the general consciousness of people, you know, Big Finish is suddenly a name that is known on by newspapers and websites like Digital Spy and Radio Times and things like that. They do stories about Finish. That would never have happened in my time. But the fact that it's happened now is a testament to what Nick and David have done with it in the last 15 years or so. And it's a huge honour that I was able to at least kickstart that, if not take it to those heights. But they've done the real sort of making it the success. I sort of little cottage industry with me. Now it's a sort of big award-winning corporation under them, and that's down to them, nothing to do with me. But thank you. I'm very honoured that you think that. I'm very, very, very flattered to be asked to talk about it.
You have been listening to the Sirens of Audio, episode 58, with special guest Gary Russell. Thanks, Gary, for your time, for the stories, and for dashing any hopes of ever owning a home. Can you build a home out of CDs? Next time on the show, it's Randomoids 3, where we'll be reviewing 2 stories that the Randomoid Selectron threw up at us, the 8th Doctor's Sword of Orion, and the 5th Doctor's The Starmen. Theme music by the Jackpot Golden Boys. Check out their website, jackpotgoldenboys.com. Send us your feedback via email to sirensofaudio@gmail.com. Links to all our podcast, YouTube and social media locations can be found on our website, sirensofaudio.com. Rate, review, subscribe and share, because that's how more beautiful people just like you will get to hear beautiful people just like us. And maybe some people who've actually worked on Doctor Who too. Until you hear from us again here on the Sirens of Audio, inject yourself daily with good quality audio drama. Because audio drama is so cool.